This is honestly the first time I've seen a build that allows you to have a bunch of turrets out that is still usable in endgame content. Most of the time, I see these OP-ass Bleakwatcher builds that require way too much buildup just to throw down an absurd amount of turrets, when having 3 to 4 is just as strong. And then after you throw down your turrets, there's not much more that the build can do. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's G-Miners here, and in this video, I wanted to go over a Bleakwatcher turret build that lets you get out 3 to 4 turrets consistently, no matter if there is 100 adds to kill or they're just spawning in like groups of 5. We're also going to be utilizing extremely strong synergies in this build, along with a god-rolled crafted fusion rifle that anybody can easily get, and a weapon which is going to be meta for damage in day 1 raids with this setup. There also really isn't too much you need to do here other than just melt things with an extremely hard-hitting weapon, and for our special and primary, they both have Demolitionist, so just by throwing out Bleakwatchers, which we are going to be doing all the time, you can easily bypass most of your time spent reloading. The WARLOCK super on Stasis also tends to be extremely useless in my opinion, so instead, we're going to be using this to generate special ammo for ourself and teammates, which allows us to heavily rely on our fusion rifle to add clear trash adds and even tankier enemies as well. As always, if you guys do enjoy these builds and you want to see more like them on the channel, make sure to drop a like and sub down below. Only around 17% of you guys that watch these videos are actually subscribed, so make sure to smack that red button and let's get into the build. So starting off with our subclass, this build is going to center around making turrets and then also making stasis shards. So obviously for our super and our melee, we can't choose anything different, but for our rift, we are going to be on healing. This is a solid 40 HP per second, which is similar to restoration times 1, and I don't really see a need for empowering rift here, as we will get the exact same effect from a well of radiance or just high energy fire. And then for our grenade, we are going to be running cold snaps. The main reason for this is that it will pair with our exotic for some pretty substantial energy back, and it allows us to start with 2 turrets off the rip, so definitely the best grenade for any turret setup right now. First and foremost, for aspects, we have Bleakwatcher. This allows us to hold in our grenade and then release it once it is fully charged to instead toss out a stasis turret. This will then shoot slowing projectiles that will eventually freeze enemies, and as you've probably already seen, the crowd control with these is insane, and the damage is honestly great too, because even though they don't deal high damage on their own, we're getting increased damage on shatter effects, which is going to be much stronger, and overall, these last for 25 seconds at base. Second up to this is then Glacial Harvest, which now allows us to spawn in stasis shards when freezing enemies. After making 6 of these in total, there is going to be a 10-second cooldown, but I'm not entirely sure if this only applies if 6 are made in a certain duration, but either way, these stasis shards give us 12% melee energy per each one we collect. This sounds kinda mid, and it is, but with some mods, these shards become extremely overpowered. Lastly, for the subclass, we do have our fragments, which we will get 4 of with this setup. First is going to be Whisper of Conduction. This allows the stasis shards we generate to now track to our position. These fly through the air and have pretty good tracking ranges of like 15 meters, so definitely a lot better than something like Seeking Wells. Whisper of Chains is up next. This is a 40% damage reduction anytime we are near a stasis crystal or frozen targets. There is almost never a time that I don't have this on. If you want to build on stasis for endgame content, this 40% DR on top of everything else we have is a must, especially since we don't have healing in the stasis subclass. Whisper of Refraction is a fragment I don't typically use, but it's pretty strong. This gives us class ability energy every time we defeat a frozen target. Rank and files are going to be 10 to 25% depending on their tier. Elites are 15 to 40%, which is also tier dependent. And then mini bosses and champs are always 50%. But with the way that we shatter things, even if you only get 10% back per enemy, multiple will constantly be dying each and every time we get kills. So that's a substantial percentage of our rift. Lastly, we have Whisper of Fissures. This gives us a solid 12.5% increase on the shatter damage we deal, and on top of this, we get a boost in range. I'm not entirely sure on the range boost here, but at 10 meters, everything should take the max amount of damage possible, and then at the 17 meter range is where things start taking the minimum amount of damage before it completely falls off. For our exotic, OSMIOMANCY gloves are the perfect fit. These give us 2 cold snap grenades, hence why we chose to run these over everything else, and they also give us energy back when the cold snap hits enemies. Once again, the energy we get back is going to be increased based on the rank of enemy we hit, so I choose to typically throw these at yellow bars and then mini bosses, which gives 33% or 50% back each time, which is massive. But this also gives energy back if multiple enemies are hit, so in a lot of cases, I will just throw 1 grenade down and end up getting 200% energy back from a group that all freezes, giving me both grenades straight back. You are going to want a God rolled Deliverance to use. If you ended up watching my previous Hunter Stasis build, I paired it with Riptide and it felt amazing. So I wanted a fusion for this build that also had Chill Clip and then had Demolitionist, of which only Deliverance rolls with. Demo weapon kills give us 20% grenade energy back per kill on specials, and when we throw a grenade down, this automatically reloads it for us. Chill Clip, on the other hand, is great for increasing damage. Our base shot hits 7 times, each for 6,376, and then after 2 shots, Carl here ends up being frozen, so the 3rd shot hits for 6,695 7 times, and then we deal an additional 9,645 damage when he shatters, which is a solid 27% increase in damage, plus an extra 12.5% with fissures on, which I wasn't using in this clip. But the real reason we are using this is for the utility that it provides against beefier enemies. Taking a look over at our mods for the build, just know that you can swap these up depending on what is needed, but first and foremost is going to be elemental shards. This allows our stasis shards to count as elemental wells, which is huge for the build. I also have on Font of Might, so that whenever we grab a stasis shard, our stasis weapons, aka Deliverance, will now also deal 25% more damage. Since stasis shards count as elemental wells, we can also utilize elemental charge, which makes it so that we get charged with light at almost all times after picking one of these shards up. And then lastly, for this build, I am running 2 copies of the mod Firepower to give back 30% of my grenade each time I throw down a turret. This just requires and consumes 1 stack of charge with light each time, but this will drastically help with our turret's uptime. On my class ability, I am also running Bomber and Special Finisher. Running Double Bomber isn't really going to be worth it because 1 copy gives you 25% grenade energy back and 2 only ups it to 30%. Special Finisher, on the other hand, is super useful for converting our super into special ammo so we can add clear with Deliverance. In boss situations, I would also just switch out Firepower for elemental time dilation and then 2 more copies of Font of Might, and then also throw on a Reed's Regret to hit for an insane amount of damage and the highest sustainable DPS in the game with the easiest setup. Overall, I think this build is super strong. It isn't something I think is the best version of the Stasis build on Warlocks, but I do think it's great if you're obsessed with having turrets out or need the ad clear. If you do want to see my other Endgame Stasis builds for each class, which I think are some of the best versions to run in Endgame content, those will all be linked below, so make sure to check them out. And then also, let me know your thoughts on the build in the comments below. And also let me know if you guys end up preferring to play with a bunch of turrets or just use them here and there when you get your grenade back. I do also stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we do speedruns and low mans live, so a link to that and my Discord server with all the dim links to the builds I make is in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.